want to show you in this screencast how to factorize quadratic trinomials. Now I think this might be the first time you've come across such terms. So a quadratic is a power 2 equation, and that probably is known to you, a power 2 equation or expression. Okay, that means that the highest power in the expression or the equation is 2. So essentially an x squared sort of equation. That's a quadratic. A trinomial is a 3-term expression or equation. 3-term tri. I'm sure you're familiar with the prefix tri. Okay, so a 3-term expression of power 2 is a quadratic trinomial. So an example of that is x squared plus x minus 6. That's an example. It's got 3 terms, so it's a trinomial. It's a quadratic because its highest power is 2. Now the reason we're being so specific is that there's certain factorizing techniques here. For instance, if I just asked you to factorize x squared plus 6x, I could have done that yesterday. You don't need anything fancy, any sort of rules about this. You just go, oh yeah, 2 terms, I get it. Actually, I'll make that a 3x squared. Highest common factor, 3x, yeah, I think so. X plus 2, all right, I am done. But if I put a plus 1 on the end there, things change because now there isn't a common factor anymore. There's no x that runs through here, nothing. And so you'll see that in this trinomial, there's no common factor that immediately jumps out. Certainly no algebraic one. So we have to consider this in a different way. We have to consider solving it using a different method. In order to do that, I want to take you through an expansion, which, as you know, is the opposite of factorization. So let's just come over to the side here and let's expand x plus 3 and x plus 2. So I'll just say let's expand that. Now in order to expand that, you've been doing a bit of this lately, you've got to go FOIL, haven't you? So x squared plus 2x plus 3x plus 6. So let's write all that out. It's x squared plus 2x plus 3x plus 6. Now expanding this out gets us x squared plus 2x plus 3x, 5x plus 6. That's expanding it. Now factorizing it is going back this way. So what we're looking to do in this section is build the skills to go that way and factorize what is a quadratic trinomial. Now, obviously we know how it's factorized, we can see it there. But the reason I'm doing it like this is so that we can link the factorized version with the unfactorized version or the expanded version, and just see what the relationship is and how we're going to get from a situation like this to a situation like this. So to be able to factorize. So have a look at this. We've got x squared. Well, first thing to notice here, it's an x squared, but it's what's called a monic quadratic, or monic meaning 1, mono 1. It's got a coefficient of x squared as 1. It's not written in there. You know, we don't write 1x squared. It's just x squared. So that's the first thing to note, because we'll deal with 2x squareds, 3x squareds in different ways. But at the moment, we're just dealing with monic quadratics. Now, the coefficient of x is 5, okay, and the number on the end is 6. Now, look at these two numbers here, 3 and 2. Now, if we think about that, the 3 and the 2, they add to 5, and the 3 and the 2, they multiply to 6. So, if I get the two numbers that add to 5 and multiply to 6, if I get those two numbers, which are add to 5, multiply to 6, those numbers are 2 and 3. If I take those numbers and put them in to binomial expressions with x, then I've factorized x squared plus 5x plus 6. So let's see if we can apply that over here. So add to 5, so add to the coefficient of x, the number in front of the x, and multiply to 6. So over here, it's a monic quadrilateral. There's a 1 in front there, so I can use this method. Alright, so the number in front of the x here is 1. So I'm looking for two numbers that add to 1, and here I'm looking for the two numbers that also multiply to minus 6. I want two numbers that do that job for me. Add to 1 and multiply to minus 6. So I go through my my options. How do I multiply to minus 6? So usually the best thing to do, is to look at, how do you get minus 6? How can I? Because there's loads of ways I can add to 1, massive, infinite number, but there's only so many ways I can multiply to minus 6. So my options, and if we ran through them, they'd be 6 and 1, 2 and 3, and that's it. Now I've got to pair a negative into it, but they've also got to add to 1. So I can't add 1. It doesn't matter what I do with 6 and 1. They're never going to add to 1. But I can certainly put these together to add to 1. And if I make the minus in front of the 2, minus 2, 3, if I add those, I get 1. If I multiply them, I get minus 6. So my factors, I'm now going to use these to factorize x squared plus x minus 6 to x minus 2, x plus 3. You see what's happening there? In the first slot, we just whack in some x's, and the numbers minus 2 and 3, which I get from there, go into those positions to factorize. All right, let's have a look at another example. X squared minus 5x plus 6. So this is example 2. X squared plus 5x minus 5x, I'm sorry. X squared minus 5x plus 6. Okay, so we're now, rather than writing it out like that, I'm just going to put over the side here, I'm looking for two numbers that add to minus 5 and multiply to 6. Minus 5 from that position there, coefficient of x, and multiply to 6, that number on the end there. What are those two numbers? Let's work them out. Multiply to 6, add to minus 5, I reckon minus 3 and minus 2. Now you're going to get better at doing this, finding these numbers, but start with looking for pairs of numbers that multiply to 6. Now in this case I knew they had to add to minus 5, so in order for them to multiply to 6 they had to both be negative. So my solution, that minus 3 and minus 2, see what I do is I just plant some x's in those positions there, and I put minus 3 and minus 2 in either order in that position there. Just look at the expansion, x squared minus 2x minus 3x gets me the minus 5x plus 6, perfect. Okay, let's have a look at example 3. Example 3 is 2x squared minus 10x minus 28. The first thing to notice here is that there's a 2 out the front here. It's not monic. However, I can take the 2 out straight away because 2 runs right through this thing. Now I've got 2 outside of x squared minus 5x minus 14. Now I've got a bracketed trinomial, quadratic trinomial that I can work on. So I'm just going to hold the 2. That's going to be a factor. I'm going to try and factorize this now. Two numbers that add to this number here in front of the x, minus 5, and multiply to this number here on the end, minus 14. Try and work out those two numbers. Pause and work out those two numbers. Okay, how did you go? 7 2s are 14. It's probably going to work for us, isn't it? Negative 14, so one of them is going to have to be negative. 7 and 2. Which one's going to be negative? The minus 7. Minus 7 plus 2 gives me minus 5, and they multiply to minus 14. So my final factorization is x minus 7, x plus 2. One more example. X squared minus 8x plus 16. X squared minus 8x plus 16 is a monic polynomial. Perfect. I want the two numbers to add to minus 8. I want two numbers that multiply to 16. What are those two numbers? 16, 16 and 1, 8 and 2, 4 and 4. How about 4 and 4? In fact, they're going to have to be minus 4 and minus 4, aren't they? To add to minus 8 and multiply to 16. So what I've got here is x minus 4, x minus 4, or you could write it more simply as x minus 4 all squared. Okay, so what I think we should do now is go to exercise 5C in class on Tuesday, and we should do questions 1 through to probably through to question 6, questions 1 through to 6. Questions 1 to 6 from the work requirements. We'll do that in class Tuesday. I'll see you then.